Now today we are going to discuss the path to Sothapanna, the first level of enlightenment, as per Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, the first sermon that Lord Buddha delivered to the Panchavagriya Bhikkhu, the five main disciples. Now to start with, we will observe Panchasila, then we will meditate for 5 minutes to get everyone in the right mood for the Dhamma discussion. Then we will have Dhamma discussion for about 30 minutes, then 10 minutes of Q&A, and the last 10 minutes I'll utilize to transfer merit and offer blessings to the entire world. Right, we'll start with observing Panchasila now. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Satyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Satyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Satyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccācara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Savada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majjhapama dacchana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And get ready for the Dhamma discussion. As I explained at the beginning, today we are going to discuss the path to Sothapanna, the first level of enlightenment, as Lord Buddha explained in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, the first sermon that Lord Buddha delivered after attaining Buddhahood. Now, all the Dhamma that I am going to explain to you, I have taken from the oldest Tripitaka in the world, which is kept at the British Library in London, which happens to be less than 20 miles from our Vihara. Now, this Tripitaka is over 2,000 years old, and that was the first Tripitaka that was ever written down in the world, and that was written down 456 years after Lord Buddha passed away, and it is widely accepted that that Tripitaka is 100% correct. Some of the sermons are written on gold leaves, some are written on silver leaves, some are written on copper leaves, and the majority of them are written on Ola leaves. So when you look at them, you can guess how old they are. They look very, very old. So the Dhamma that I am explaining you from that Tripitaka, sometimes certain Dhamma points might differ from what you have learned already. And if that is the case, don't develop anger against it. resentment or anger, or don't develop arguments. Just practice the principle that Lord Buddha explained in Kalama Sutra. In Kalama Sutra, the word sutra means a sermon. In Kalama Sutra, Lord Buddha said, don't either believe or disbelieve what I say. Just listen to everything I say carefully. Take all these facts home, analyze them, revise them, go through them over and over again using your intelligence and wisdom. And at the end of the day, if you think it is right, you can take it, make use of it, practice it, and get results out of it. And if you think it's wrong, just leave it out and carry on with whatever you are doing. But don't develop arguments, don't have resentment or anger. So I request all of you to do the same, practice the same principle. So in Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, first Lord Buddha gave a summary of the sutra. Lord Buddha had a habit of every time when he delivered a long sutra, he had a habit of giving a summary of the sutra at the beginning. So the summary is about 1.5 pages. Then the rest of the sutra he has explained in detail to the Panchavaggiya Bhikkhu. Panchavaggiya Bhikkhus are the first 5 disciples, Kondanya, Bhadya, Vappa, Mahanama, and Assaji. According to the Tripitaka, there are only 5 human beings present for the first sermon. But it says there were 330 million superior beings who came from 20 Brahma Loka and 6 Divya Loka. So when I say these things, sometimes some people say there are no Brahma and there are no Deva in Buddhism, but it is clearly explained. Lord Buddha has named 20 Brahma Loka and 6 Divya Loka in that sutra, as well as in several other sutras as well. The 20 Brahma Loka and 6 Divya Loka. So the sutra says that there were 330 million superior beings who came from these 20 Brahma Loka and 6 Divya Loka to listen to this first sermon of Lord Buddha, Lord Gautama Buddha. So the summary, going to the summary, first Lord Buddha says, Pubbe Ananusutesu Dhammesu, that is in Pali. The English meaning is, I am explaining to you a Dhamma that you haven't heard before. Now this is very important to remember because Lord Buddha is saying this to the 5 first disciples, and they were not children, they were elderly people. All of them have been meditating in the forest for over 25 years, looking for the reasons for suffering and the way out of suffering, looking for the truth in the world, in the universe. And they had mastered 64 religions and over 30 meditation techniques that were existing in the world at the time. So in terms of Dhamma, they were highly educated people. And for these 5 people, Lord Buddha said that I'm going to explain to you the Dhamma that you haven't heard before. Then secondly, he says, when I understood this Dhamma, I got Chakkung Uddapadi, Jnanam Uddapadi, Panya Uddapadi, Vidya Uddapadi, Aloko Uddapadi. Chakkung Uddapadi means I got the vision of Dhamma. Jnanam Uddapadi means I got the knowledge of Dhamma. Panya Uddapadi means I got the wisdom of Dhamma. Vidya Uddapadi means I got the science of Dhamma. Remember, Lord Buddha delivered, Lord Buddha explained, Lord Buddha preached, not a religion, but a science, a scientific theory called cause and effect theory. He used that theory to explain everything in the universe, how everything in the universe came into existence, how they continue their existence, how this existence can be stopped, and if it is not stopped, how it will destroy itself naturally and recreate it naturally. That's what he explained using this scientific theory called cause and effect theory. So that's what he meant by Vijithavansa, about the science of Dhamma. And finally, he said, Aloko Udapadi. I became Aloka from Loka. By Loka, what he meant was the 31 planes, the 31 realms, the 20 Brahma Lokas, 6 Divya Lokas, Manusha Loka, that's the human world, and the Satarapaya, the 4 hells. By Aloko Udapadi, what he meant was he managed to overcome this cycle of birth and rebirth. He managed to come out of this world, go out of this loka and became aloka. That means go to a very special place called Nibbana. In Sanskrit it's called Nirvana. And that place is the permanent place where one will have a permanent state of happiness. So as a Buddhist, that's the final target of a Buddhist person, to go to Nibbana or Nirvana. So the Sothapanna is the first level of enlightenment. Lord Buddha said in the process of this going to Nibbana, the most important step, most important hurdle to clear is to become Sothapanna. Because once a person becomes Sothapanna, he said that person will never ever go to the 4 hells again for the rest of his samsara. Because 4 hells are the places where there's immense suffering that those who go there will have to undergo. So a person who becomes Sothapanna, that means he has learned Dhamma, correct Dhamma, understood Dhamma, comprehend Dhamma, and come to the correct path, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. Then Lord Buddha says, in order to understand Dhamma, there are 3 things that you have to do. He said you have to come out of Kamasukallikana Yoga, you have to come out of Attakilamatana Yoga, and you have to come to Majjhima Patipada. Kamasukallikana Yoga means living a life of luxury. That's what Prince Siddhartha did before he became a monk. So he said you have to come out of that. While saying that, you can't understand Islam. Then he said you have to also come out of Attakilamatana Yoga, that is giving unnecessary suffering to the body and the mind, thinking that that will help you to improve your wisdom and understand the truth about the universe. That's what Bodhisattva did. Prince Siddhartha became Bodhisattva after becoming a monk. He was known as Bodhisattva. And he did a research called Arya Paryeshana. Paryeshana means research. He did a research of 6 years, trying various things which will help him to improve his wisdom and understand the truth about the world. And he said that is also not good. Giving unnecessary suffering to the body does not help you to understand Dhamma. So you have to come out of that as well. And then you have to come to Majjhima Patipada. Majjhima Patipada is the path that helps you to eradicate the 3 poisons, Raga, Dvesha, Moha, which is covering our wisdom. And once we eradicate those 3 poisons, Raga, Dvesha, Moha, we will be able to develop our wisdom to the highest possible level, and then we will be able to understand the truth about the universe, which is Dhamma. Dhamma is universal laws, how this universe works. So the words raga, dvesha, moha. Now there are certain Pali words that Lord Buddha has used to explain Dhamma, and the English language does not have words that gives the exact meaning of these Pali words. So we have to, I have to explain you the meaning of these Pali words and try and remember the meaning of them. And then I will continue to use those Pali words in the discussion. Firstly, raga, dvesha, moha. Raga is desire or greed, or that kind of meaning it gives, the word raga. Desire, greed. Dvesha means anger and resentment, or anything else relating to that. Moha means lack of knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, which is the truth, which is the true nature of this universe. So please remember those three words. I'll be referring to them as I go on. Raga, dvesha, moha. I repeat, raga is greed and desire. Dvesha is anger and resentment. Moha is lack of knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, or ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. So, firstly, Lord Buddha says, now in order to understand Dhamma, you have to do these three things. Come out of luxury living, come out of unnecessary suffering, and come to the path that will help you to eradicate raga, dvesha, moha. Then he says, this path, the Majjhima Patipada, is the noble eightfold path. There are 8 steps that you have to take in order to complete that path, to go all the way up to the 4th level of enlightenment, which is known as Arahatva. And the 4 steps are Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa, Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva, Samma Vayama, Samma Sati, Samma Samadhi. Don't worry about the next stage. We will discuss them in detail later. Now, in the summary, I am just mentioning the important points first that Lord Buddha has explained in the summary. Then each point we will discuss in detail later, so that everyone will be able to understand and comprehend the meaning of each Dhamma point mentioned at every stage. Then Lord Buddha says, in order to come to Majjhima Patipada, one has to understand the 4 Noble Truths. And then he said the 4 Noble Truths are Noble Truths of suffering, that means everyone undergoes suffering. Noble Truths of the cause of suffering, Noble Truth of out of suffering, and the Noble Truth of the way out of suffering. Then he says, in order to understand the 4 Noble Truths, there are 4 things that you have to do yourself. And they are Kalyana Mitra Sevana, Siri Saddharma Svavana, Yoniso Manasikara, Dhammanu Dhamma Patipada. Now I will explain these in English. Please try and remember the meanings of the Pali words. So Kalyana Mitra Sevana means associating a person who is capable of explaining correct Dhamma to you, which will help you to eradicate the 3 poisons, Raga, Dvesha, Moha. And Sri Saddharma Sravana means listening to the correct Dhamma explained by that person. And third one, Yoniso Manasikara. Yoniso Manasikara means the Dhamma that you have learned already by listening to Kalyana Mitra. You go through it over and over again, revise it, analyze it, using your intelligence and wisdom, and try and comprehend that Dhamma. And the fourth one is Dhammano Dhamma Patipada. So that one, Lord Buddha explained as Sabba Papasta Akaranam, Kusalasta Upasampada, Sachitta Pariyodapanam, Etang Buddha Anusasana. This is a very famous gatha in Buddhist doctrine. Most Buddhist people have heard of it. So Sabba Papasta Akaranam means eradicate all unwholesome deeds. Once you eradicate all the unwholesome deeds, then you will automatically stop committing any sin, mentally, verbally, or physically. So eradicate all unwholesome deeds. Kusalasta upasampada. Cultivate, practice, develop wholesome deeds. When you practice wholesome deeds, you will accumulate merit in very large quantities, mentally, physical, verbally, and physically. We will explain these things in detail later. This is just a summary. So, Sabba Papa Sakaranam Kusalastupa Sampada Sachitta Pariyodapana. Purify your mind through this process, which means purify your mind by doing eradicating unwholesome deeds and cultivating and developing wholesome deeds. Finally, Etang Buddha Anusasana. This is the advice given by all the Sammasammas. So that is what Sabba Papa Sakaranam Kusala Sampada Satitya Pariyodapanam Etang Buddha Anusasana means. So that is what Lord Buddha meant by Dhammano Dhamma Patipada. So those are the four things that you have to do. So what you are doing now is the first two things. You are associating a person who can explain correct Dhamma to you, which will help you to gradually eradicate the three poisons from your mind, that is Raga, Dvesha, Moha. And then you are also listening to the correct Dhamma explained by that Kalyana Mitra. So you are doing the first two things. And once you have done the first two things, it's up to you to do the other two things, number 3 and number 4, which will be discussing later in more detail as to how to do them.